Donald Trump recognizes that the conflict that's ongoing in Ukraine, which is a little more than a proxy conflict between the West, which includes the United States, NATO, European Union, using Ukraine as the proxy, and Russia, that this conflict could lead to World War III and a nuclear war. That's the end of all life on the planet. And that's without the concept of a nuclear war. I mean, Ukraine is the single most corrupt nation on the planet. Zelensky is the single most corrupt leader on the planet. Let's not forget that Seymour Hersh, who I respect greatly, wrote a while back that, William Burns, the director of the CIA, had to travel on orders of Joe Biden to Ukraine early on, not to hold his hand and tell him how much. He said, stop being so corrupt. Quit taking so much money. It's becoming too obvious. We can't hide this anymore. Okay, when the director of the CIA has to go to Ukraine and tell the president of Ukraine to stop stealing money, it's becoming an embarrassment for the United States. You have a problem. And yet the entire mainstream media, who knows all about his corruption, they know this. They just choose to play the stupid game. And then all the people on social media pretending, all the government officials posturing. This isn't about them playing, social media games and posturing and all that. This is about life and death of the entire world. And I think sometimes people lose track of that when they talk about this, especially the people that fly the Ukrainian flag next to their name on their social media accounts as though they're somehow morally superior to everybody else. And so what's happening with this shutting down of the military aid, it's attached to a larger problem of Ukraine and NATO and the European Union. I just want to, again, remind people, because sometimes people tend to forget these things, even though they're right in their face. You do know, and J.D. Vance brought this up in the White House meeting, that Zelensky campaigned on behalf of the Biden administration that lead up to the November election, that he went on a campaign trip. He went up to Scranton, had some artillery shells autographed in a very disgusting manner by the governor of Pennsylvania, a Democrat. And he actively advocated for the victory of the Biden administration, basically saying that Donald Trump was a threat. But it wasn't just that. After his November election, Zelensky, NATO, the European Union all conspired with the Biden administration to Trump-proof their policies. That's straight up saying that they are conspiring against the president of the United States. Even though Biden was the president, we know who was going to be president. We know what their policies are. So if you're trying to Trump-proof it, you're saying that you're advocating in direct opposition to the policy direction that Donald Trump wants to take America. In short, you've become the enemy of America. I don't know if you know anything about Donald Trump, but he has an ego, he has thin skin, and he's vindictive as hell, and his memory's like an elephant. You think he's going to forget that? The West may have forgotten that. The media may have ignored it. Donald Trump hasn't forgotten that, as obvious as made obvious by J.D. Vance's bringing it up. The most important mineral deal is the one that he's going to sign with Russia, because the Ukrainian one, we can't put a figure on it. 350 billion, 500 billion, 100 billion. We don't know. The Russians, they know. Over 7 trillion. And when the United States gets involved in a $7 trillion joint venture with the Russians, that pretty much means that Russia's not going to screw that up by reinvading Ukraine or invading Poland. Russia's not going to do that. And the United States isn't, we're not going to be saying, let's overthrow the Russian government now. No, we're making money. It's good business. And that's the direction we're going. And with Europe, we've got to get them. Look, Trump, there's movement. I don't know if it's going to reach manifestation yet, but there's movement to get the United States to buy controlling interests in the destroyed Nord Stream pipelines, to get that back up and running, so that when gas comes in, which is essential for European economic recovery, it just isn't going to happen without Russian gas. That's a truism. When it starts flowing, that the United States is a player there, so that, we have a say in this, that it's not totally, subordinated to Russian interests. It's the United States and Russia coming together, working on joint economic interests to ensure that the focus of security in the Europe going forward is premised on stable economic relations and not a flawed, archaic, antiquated military alliance that has no reason to exist anymore. The approach taken by the Europeans, this military approach, if your security guarantee is premised on military, all that guarantees is that there will be war, future war. And so Trump is tearing down the edifice that insists that there needs to be military forces involved in security arrangements and re-educating Europe on the reality that, no, it will be about the stupid. Trump is looking for economic relations because economic relations engender stability. And in order to continue and sustain economic relations, you have to have stability, political, economic. Right now, Europe defines its relationship with Russia through NATO. That means NATO's the problem. So NATO's got to go down. Europe also has Russophobic leaders who have come to political prominence because of, a hostile stance towards Russia. They've got to go. They've got to be eliminated. They have to be replaced with people who say, not only do we need sound economic stuff, we need to de-emphasize the military and re-emphasize economic interaction with Russia. That's the strategic vision of Donald Trump, and that's the direction he's taking it. And I hope everybody can agree that that's a good thing. The peace and stability, that working in cooperation with Russia, not in confrontation, is the best direction that we can go in, and that seems to be the direction that Donald Trump's going in. And I just have to tell you, if you're not on board this train, it's not just that you're going to be left behind. Donald Trump's going to turn the train around and run you over. He will not brook anybody opposing this, because this is about existential questions of survivability for the United States. So get on board or die. That's pretty much my message to people. Trump isn't going to say so bluntly yet. So now that we've simplified it, Zelensky is the enemy of America. Ukraine is the enemy of America. Great Britain is the enemy of America. Keir Starmer is the enemy of America. France, Macron, they are the enemy of America. Europe is the enemy of America. NATO is the enemy of America. So now let's take a look at what Trump is doing here. The UK, as part of their Trump proofing, entered a secret deal with Ukraine, basically where Ukraine turned over their mineral rights to the United Kingdom in exchange for 100 years of security guarantees. And this was what the British told the Ukrainians is, we've got a special relationship with America. You sign this over, we guarantee your security because we will make sure America's trapped into this. You can't trap Donald Trump. And so, what is Europe to do? He shut down this military aid until which time Zelensky signs the mineral agreement. But Zelensky can't sign the mineral agreement because of the UK agreement, which means that ultimately the UK is going to have to make null and void its agreement. It's a big game being played here. There's only one player that is in a position to win. That's Donald Trump. And so Trump basically countered with his own mineral deal that Zelensky can't sign. That's what's going on here. Zelensky can't admit that he sold everything to the British, but he can't sign that agreement too. And Trump's calling him out. And in the process, he's calling out Great Britain. And in the process, he's calling out NATO. He's basically saying, you are my enemy. You're my stated enemy. Keir Starmer, you have went behind my back to have a secret deal with Ukraine designed to trap me, the president of the United States. You can't trap me. I've trapped you. He's turned the tables on them. Europe, NATO, Ukraine have decided to go to war against America. Literally, a war that could take us down the path towards a nuclear conflict. Donald Trump's in the business of making America great again. That's his stated policy. This isn't about just Ukraine. This is about the British government realizing that they are throwing away a special relationship, that Donald Trump is going to shut them down instantly. You can't bribe Trump with a meeting to, a state visit to the king. I mean, okay, you're Donald Trump. Keir Starmer comes and says, here's an envelope. It's so special. It's from the king. The king wants to invite you for a state visit. It's really a unique honor. And then the stinky, smelly cocaine addict leaves the White House, goes there and gets an audience with the king. Cheapens it. What is the king? Keir Starmer farms him out. Hey, I need you to impress Trump. Go have, you're going to go meet with Trump and all that. So, so the king now has to do that. But I don't think that meeting is going to happen. I can't speak for Donald Trump, but I don't imagine Donald Trump's going to take sloppy seconds from Zelensky. All right. So what we're seeing here about starving out Ukrainian assets by shutting down military shipments, part of a bigger game being played where we're going to shut down England. We're going to shut down Europe. We're going to shut down NATO until they do exactly what we want them to do, when we tell them to do it, how we tell them to do it. There is no such thing as an independent Europe, independent NATO, independent Ukraine. Everybody works for us, and they will obey our orders or they will be destroyed in the process. That's the signal that's being sent here by Donald Trump. This isn't just about shutting off the spigot for Ukraine weapons. This is about the United States telling Europe, NATO, Ukraine, either you line up, when I say with us, I mean behind us, because I'm the leader, you will follow me, and we're taking you to a path of peace with Russia, or I destroy you. Zelensky went, and the king basically prostituted himself out. Said, oh, you need me to meet with literally a cocaine addict who is corrupt as the day is long, who is a disgusting individual. And the king had to meet with this person because Keir Starmer wanted to send a political signal. All Keir Starmer did is prove that the king's a whore. Said, I'm sorry, Great Britain, but you allowed Keir Starmer to prostitute out your king. The king's a whore. And you think the president of the United States is going to go and meet with this whore after he's dirtied himself with the cocaine addict? No. And so the English are desperate. They blew it. And now Keir Starmer's stuck with the fact that he has a secret 100-year deal with Zelensky that's going to have to be canceled. That's going to be humiliating for him. But what do they got? Nothing. We're going to put boots on the ground, planes in the air. Well, they can't do it without America's help. And America say, you don't got our help. The French, we're going to be there for you, but we're not. Italy finally got smart and said, no, we're not even playing this stupid game. The Poles, we're not playing this stupid game. Europe's falling apart. There is no European unity. That was the beauty of that meeting. I love the fact that they at least were honest enough to keep the Baltic states out of there, because they're nothing. It's high time Europe just shut them down, literally, and just say, no, you're done. We don't want to hear your yapping anymore. We're not going to let you drag us into this war. Poland's getting the big picture. Oh, wait a minute. If this all goes south, all those American troops on our soil are going to leave. Yes, they are. And they're going to leave no matter what. You think we're going to keep American troops in Poland once we have peace with Russia? No, we're not. The Baltics will be abandoned. It will all be abandoned. Europe's just coming to grips with the fact that this entire enterprise that they bought into, which is supposed to be led by the United States, that there's in fact a revolution taking place in America today, a fundamental revolution that redefines how America operates internally and how we deal with the world. There only one winner came out of that White House. His name was Donald Trump. J.D. Vance gets a good second place, elevated his potential, but that's it. Nobody else won, only Donald Trump. Everybody else lost. This was the Godfather massacre. And that's how you have to start viewing Donald Trump. You have to come in, you have to kiss his ring, or else you're screwed. Let's just think again logically. It was the third meeting of 3 meetings. If Ukraine was the most important part of it, they would have led, or they would have finished with everybody else in attendance. The first meeting was with Macron. He came in, he got to feel Donald Trump's knee. Hope he enjoyed it. And then he left. Tell me what happened in that meeting of significance. You don't even remember the meeting. You can't tell me what the talking points were. Neither can the rest of America. That's how irrelevant it was. Then Keir Starmer came in. Tell me what was accomplished there. Nothing. So bad that Keir Starmer had to go back to Europe and talk about it, convening an emergency. I mean, if these meetings went well, if Macron and Starmer were able to, move the needle with Donald Trump's head, they'd be sitting there going, okay, we're going to have a meeting to talk about all the great things that came out of the White House. Instead of, we need an emergency meeting to talk about getting rid of NATO and going forward with it. This is bad. But it got much worse because the cocaine addict from Ukraine showed up. When was the last time Graham said bad boy to Zelensky? Oh, it was a setup across the board. All these people out there saying that Donald Trump is not he's the frickin' godfather. I mean, if you think about it, that scene reminds me of the scene in, I think it was Godfather 2, where they're doing the baptism of his child. And, he's sitting there saying, I'm a good Catholic and all this stuff. Meanwhile, all around town, bam, 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 they're killing everybody. Maybe that was in Godfather 1. But they killed everybody. That's what happened at the White House. Everybody got killed politically. I mean, come on, man. Trump set everybody up. Zelensky went in and shook hands with all the Democrats coming in. Hi, how you doing? Oh, God, you're so great. You're beautiful. Look, do you remember me? I was with the Biden administration. Oh, man, can't wait till this is done. This nightmare's over in the White House. We can get back to what we were. Mutual beneficial corruption. Yes. Lindsey Graham, you're the greatest thing. Oh, thank you for giving me the opportunity to have all my Ukrainian men die so that you can look stupid and fat and ugly on national TV. And they were all there, boom, set up. And then Trump, boom. And now the Democrats are like sitting there, holy cow, what happened? Even Lindsey Graham had to go on TV and go, no, bad things, Zelensky, bad boy. It was like a WWF. Donald Trump, has that WWF background. He is famously, slapped Jim McMahon and pinned him. And they just sat there and they just set Zelensky up. First of all, the whole thing was a setup. We've got the big hall, and it's set up the conference room with the treaties and the lunch and everything's there to sign over the mineral agreement. And Zelensky came in and he can't sign the mineral agreement. He can't because he signed it with the British already. But the British lied, and now he's lying to Trump, and Trump's just sitting there going, let's talk about it some more. All the lies you're going to tell me. Trump's like, okay, your lies. And finally he had enough. And look, Trump set him up from the start. This was a setup. Wear a suit. Why impose that? Wear a suit because they knew he wasn't going to wear a suit. They knew he couldn't wear a suit. They knew that his ego was such that he just couldn't do it. Wear a suit. They set him up for failure from the start. Then J.D. Vance and Donald Trump had worked out when J.D. Vance was going to intervene with his points. And so Trump was like, just waiting for the opportunity. No, boom. Tag off Vance, bam. Trump, boom, slap, bitch, slap, boom, out, gone, finished, done. It was a setup, an ambush. But it wasn't about Ukraine. It was an ambush for Europe, an ambush for the Democrats, an ambush for Lindsey Graham. And NATO sees the writing on the wall. Look at the panic in Poland right now. Because Poland's looking around going, he's going to pull out of NATO. The first step is he's going to pull the troops out of the Baltics. Then he's going to pull troops out of Germany. Well, what's he going to do with the troops in Poland? How's he going to sustain it? Because the last time I checked, Polish sustainability went through the port of Hamburg. That's in Germany. The Poles are in a panic right now because they need Fifth Corps forward. They need that brigade. They need that division of American troops that's allocated to Poland. They built their whole military system around that. And if Trump pulls the plug, as he's going to do, one of the underreported stories is that the United States has shut down Alexandroupolis, I think it was, the port in Greece that we use to transit all of our equipment into the southern flank of NATO, to Romania, to Bulgaria. When every time we did the exercises there, that was the port that we went into, and we shut it down. Why? We're pulling out of Europe. And when we leave Europe, we have to leave a Europe that is stable. The European Union, he's already said, they're the enemy of America. NATO, we're not going to fund that stuff anymore. We're out of there. Ukraine, goodbye, Zelensky. He's not going to enter a deal to help salvage Ukraine and help salvage Europe. I told you what his focus on this mineral deal with Ukraine is to humiliate the British, because there can't be a mineral deal with Ukraine as long as there's a secret deal between Ukraine and Great Britain. So one of Donald Trump's efforts here by looking at Ukraine isn't to create a lasting peace based upon economic stability, et cetera. That could happen later. It's to tear down Zelensky, this corrupt Ukrainian edifice, and those who sustain it, the British, European Union, NATO. Macron, I'd love to have been privy to some of this stuff because, Trump basically, Macron came in, Macron left, and nothing happened. No agreements, no nothing. When I look at MAGA, is there an E in there? It's make America great again, not make Europe great again, not make Europe relevant again. And then we also have to focus on the fact that I just told you, didn't you hear me when I said that Europe's the enemy, that NATO's the enemy, that Ukraine's the enemy? Do you really go out of your way to make good deals for your enemy? So if you think what's going on right now is about Donald Trump positioning to maintain the status quo in Europe, you're wrong. It's a revolution, baby. It's all going down. You have to start all over. There has to be a fresh start. And so there's going to be some ugliness beforehand. Now, Trump, politically, you can't just come out and say what I'm saying, but it's painfully obvious. But when you look at it, and again, I just remind you, J.D. Vance, highlighted the fact that, Zelensky campaigned against Donald Trump. I don't know what they told Starmer, but I know that twice Donald Trump interrupted Starmer in humiliating fashion when they met. Once he asked, can you beat the Russians? You? England. You can't even fill Wembley Stadium, and you're going to beat the Russians. And then the other time when Starmer started to talk about Canada and the special, he said, he shut him up. That's enough. That's enough. Trump wasn't going to listen to any of that garbage because we don't care about these people. The Finnish president is Scott Ritter at 63, saying that he's going to find the conditions under which he can play for the Miami Dolphins. Isn't going to happen. And the Dolphins aren't wasting any time talking about it, nor should anybody else. But because some stupid media personality decided to have an interview, they pretend it's real. It's not real. It's not real. Literally, that doesn't put pressure on Trump at all. The Finnish president putting pressure on Donald Trump? Listen to what you're saying. That man doesn't move the needle at all. And listen to who was questioning him. And what it was CNN, Christiane Amanpour, the poster lady of corrupt establishment media politics. So she was there talking to the most ineffective, irrelevant European politician imaginable. Trump doesn't even know who his name is. Trump doesn't wake up in the morning and go, I wonder what the hell the Finnish president's thinking today. Holy cow. JD, Vance, come in here, man. You got to hold my hand. Hold my hand, JD. It's bad. The Finnish president said something about a de facto NATO. What does that mean, de facto NATO membership? JD, help me out. Marco Rubio, come in. We got to have a little seance here, guys. We got to help ourselves because the Finnish president wants de facto NATO membership. No one cares. No one's listening to what he says. It will never be brought up. That's how irrelevant he is. When that Finnish president sits down at the table with the Europeans, if he's ever invited, they don't listen to him. He's not a player. What does Finland bring to the problem? An economy? Nope. A military? Nope. That's it. They only listen to the British, the French, the Germans, and the Italians. That's it. Nobody else matters. This is Christine Amanpour and CNN scratching for their moment, but it's not a moment because no one cares. Trump's playing a completely different game. And the British and the French can't agree on anything. The Italians just said, hell no. The Germans are confused. That's it. Even the Poles who have American troops on there are trying to raise their hands going, I'm relevant. I'm relevant. No one cares because you're not relevant. This is the reality. So we shouldn't really we spent far too much time talking about this Finnish president. No one cares about him because no one cares about Finland. Finland is irrelevant. They're not a player. They don't move the needle at all. Hell, they had to shut down their power generation because it got too expensive to even burn wood. Now, if you're in a nation where it's too expensive to even burn wood, you think anybody really gives a rat's ass about what you think about anything? What does this guy think he is? That he sit there and says, that's like me. I don't know. I'm going to go to the Miami. I always wanted to play football for the Miami Dolphins. Never could. Never good enough. Barely could play Division III football in college, and only because the coach liked me. Other than that, I was too slow, couldn't advance the ball. I mean, you name it, I didn't bring anything to the table except attitude. But I want to play football for the Miami Dolphins. So I go out to the training camp, and they go, you're not coming in. Why not? Well, first of all, you run a 4.940. That ain't going to get you in the door. You're not on the team. You're not even going to come on the field. Get out of here. Then I go to the media in Miami. They say, Scott, yes, Scott Ritter wants to play for the Miami Dolphins. Miami Dolphins are going, no, he doesn't. Why are you talking to him? He's irrelevant. But I'm suddenly out there telling people I'm going to be the follow-on to Dan Marino. If you just get me on the field, I can do the job that Dan Marino did. Just give me a chance. The Dolphins are like, why is anybody interviewing him and talking to him? You see how irrelevant I am when it comes to the Miami Dolphins? It doesn't matter what I want, the fantasies I have in my head, all that stuff. I'm never going to play, and they know it. They're not even going to entertain the idea of talking to me about it, especially at 63 years of age with knees that don't work anymore. That's the Finnish equivalent. Europe's got nothing going for it. I mean, don't you understand how stupid Starmer sounds when he says, we're going to put boots on the ground and planes in the air? No, you're not. No, you're not. You don't have the ability to do that, which is then backed up by the fact that he turns around and says, but we need America help doing it. No, it's not America helping me. You need America to do it for you. I mean, you've got nothing. And Europe doesn't have the ability to build a European army or a European security infrastructure, which means it's going to come down to these nations are going to have to make individual peace with Russia, which is the way it should always be. And Finland's going to have to wake up to the fact that they screwed up. The French, they've got nothing. What troops are they going to deploy? In order to get a regiment up to speed, you're going to have to cannibalize other regiments because none of your regiments are ready to go on their own. In high intensity conflict, that means logistics. That's the whole name of the game. None of these people can do logistics. Only we can do logistics. America, we're it. And we don't want to play that game anymore. Donald Trump's never going to forgive England for what they did, nor should he. Nor should he. Every American should be on the side of Donald Trump here. But most American, at least half of America were like, no, we're good. We think it's great that Europe's siding with Joe Biden in an American election. You think that's great? England is going to go through some very hard times because I think one of the things, England made a decision to divorce itself from Europe because they wanted to have this special relationship with America that no longer exists. That special relationship is done. And Keir Starmer is one of the people that helped kill it. You don't put your finger on the scale of an American election, especially if the side you tried to make win loses. And the person that won has thin skin, a big ego, and is vindictive. Do you realize how insulting that is to all Americans? Say, I think it's great that the Europeans are on our side. I don't want them on our side. I want them the hell out of the way so that we, the people, can make a decision, avoid event. You know who stayed the hell out of the way? Russia. Turns out everything they said about Russia was a lie, false, part of that deep state fabrication to hide the fact that it was Europe and the deep state that was putting their thumb on the scale the whole time. Trump won, Europe lost. Now they got to pay the price. I can't wait till Finland figures out, that the last major exercise that had, the reinforcements coming in through Narvik or coming in through Norway, going over the mountains down to Sweden, ain't never going to happen. And Finland's going to go, we're sort of stuck here alone. Bingo! Joining NATO is the worst mistake you ever made. And Sweden's waking up to that reality too. NATO is going to be over very, very soon. And when that happens, you're going to see a lot of nations struggling to define who they are and what they are. Fortunately for Finland, Sweden, the rest of Europe, the Russians aren't vindictive. All Russia wants is stability. All Russia wants is stability. They are not interested in driving on Berlin or driving on Paris or even taking away the Chihuahua states. As long as the Chihuahua states stop treating the Russian population, horribly and respect their history, which means the monuments of fallen Soviet soldiers needs to be respected, there will be no problems. Russia's not trying to dictate, how they run their country. Just don't insult Russia. Donald Trump, I think he does need to bring clarity to what's going on in Europe. Maybe he doesn't want to play too many cards, but he's announced that he's going to make some big announcements here. So I think the big ones are, the big directions that he could head into are the unplugging from Europe and the, promotion of the reality of U.S.-Russian relations, that this is a strategic direction. I don't know if he's ready to make that statement yet. But that's the direction we're heading. We're heading away from the time when the transatlantic relationship defined America in the world. And we are jettisoning this transatlantic relationship, and we are moving to a bigger stage. That's really the rest of the world. I loved it. I saw somebody, maybe it was Tusk, the Polish president. I can't believe that 500 million people are looking to 300 million people to help them defend themselves against 140 million people, meaning 500 million, the population of Europe, and the 300 million, that's America, and the 140 million is Russia. And that's his focus. And I would say, I think it's going to be the 300 million people sitting down with 140 million people, sitting down with 1.8 billion people, sitting down with another 1.8 billion people. And suddenly the math of Europe doesn't matter anymore. That you've made. First of all, you can't speak of 500 million Europeans. That implies singularity. There is no singularity. We have to speak about, what's the population of Poland? 38 million, 36 million, population of Germany. So suddenly that 500 million gets fractured. And we saw the fracturing. Giorgio Meloni, we ain't playing that stupid game. Well, so it's 500 million minus the population of Italy. Wait a minute. Others are saying they're not playing well. 500 million minus this. And suddenly you find out that there's nothing in Europe. That's why Europe has to turn to 300 million to defend against 140 million, because Europe is nothing. They can agree on nothing. They stand for nothing. That's the reality of it. I believe that, everybody keeps saying, well, it's the United States and Europe, that Europe gets a seat. I think Europe's actually being told that you've been permanently relegated to the children's table in the back. The children's table I'm talking about, when all your friends come over and you're going to have the adult table, and then all the kids go in the back so that their noise in their games doesn't bother you. Europe's no longer at the adult table. Europe's at the children's table. And that the adult table is, right now it seats 4. It seats Trump, it seats Putin, it seats Xi Jinping, and it seats Modi. That's it. That's the adult table. If I were the president, I would be putting Europe on notice that the United States has made a strategic shift towards peace with Russia, that's our goal and our objective. And then I would say that the United States, from this peace, we will then move towards, we are going to be pivoting towards the Pacific and the question of China and how we can learn to peacefully coexist with China. That would be the ideal. But to do that, we have to have a solid, we can't have a foundation around the world that's predicated on conflict. So the conflict between Europe and Russia has to come to an end. The conflicts in the Middle East have to come to an end. The most important mineral deal is the one that he's going to sign with Russia, because the Ukrainian one, we can't put a figure on it. 350 billion, 500 billion, 100 billion. We don't know. The Russians, they know. Over 7 trillion. And when the United States gets involved in a $7 trillion joint venture with the Russians, that pretty much means that Russia's not going to screw that up by reinvading Ukraine or invading Poland. Russia's not going to do that. And the United States isn't, we're not going to be saying, let's overthrow the Russian government now. No, we're making money. It's good business. And that's the direction we're going. And with Europe, we've got to get them. Look, Trump, there's movement. I don't know if it's going to reach manifestation yet, but there's movement to get the United States to buy controlling interests in the destroyed Nord Stream pipelines, to get that back up and running so that when gas comes in, which is essential for European economic recovery, it just isn't going to happen without Russian gas. That's a truism. When it starts flowing, that the United States is a player there, so that we have a say in this, that it's not totally subordinated to Russian interests. It's the United States and Russia coming together, working on joint economic interests to ensure that the focus of security in the Europe going forward is premised on stable economic relations and not a flawed, archaic, antiquated military alliance that has no reason to exist anymore. The approach taken by the Europeans, this military approach, if your security guarantee is premised on military, all that guarantees is that there will be war, future war. And so Trump is tearing down the edifice that insists that there needs to be military forces involved in security arrangements, and re-educating Europe on the reality that no, it will be about the stupid. Trump is looking for economic relations because economic relations engender stability. And in order to continue and sustain economic relations, you have to have stability, political, economic. Right now, Europe defines its relationship with Russia through NATO. That means NATO's the problem. So NATO's got to go down. Europe also has Russophobic leaders who have come to political prominence because of a hostile stance towards Russia. They've got to go. They've got to be eliminated. They have to be replaced with people who say, not only do we need sound economic stuff, we need to de-emphasize the military and re-emphasize economic interaction with Russia. That's the strategic vision of Donald Trump, and that's the direction he's taking it. And I hope everybody can agree that that's a good thing. The peace and stability, that working in cooperation with Russia, not in confrontation, is the best direction that we can go in. And that seems to be the direction that Donald Trump's going in. And I just have to tell you, if you're not on board this train, it's not just that you're going to be left behind. Donald Trump's going to turn the train around and run you over. He will not brook anybody opposing this, because this is about existential questions of survivability for the United States. So get on board or die. That's pretty much my message to people. Trump isn't going to say so bluntly yet. Trump's killing the establishment, destroying it. not reshaping it, not reshuffling it, destroying it, leveling it down to the foundation and even more. You don't do that with Republicans. So he picked JD, and I said that. I don't know if I said it on your show, but I told everybody straight up, he'll pick JD Vance because this is the MAGA revolution. They were like, no, it's not. It's a blip. And, right. We're looking at 12 to 20 years of MAGA control of Washington, D.C. That's what's happening here. When Donald Trump was considering his vice presidential candidates, I think the final three were two governors and J.D. Vance. The two governors were Republican governors. J.D. Vance is MAGA. This is a Make America Great Again revolution that's taking place. Now, if Trump had picked a Republican, that's the end of the revolution, because literally what you just said is all we have to do is wait 4 years and then the establishment would come back in. Marco Rubio wasn't. Marco Rubio, let's be honest. Donald Trump took $100 million from Miriam Adelson, and that was supposed to buy Marco Rubio as the vice president. And Trump said, that's just not going to happen. And so Miriam said, well, he has to be in somewhere. And so he's in as Secretary of State. You want to see the power dynamic? Look at the video of J.D. Vance talking, gesturing, the comfort, and Marco Rubio just sitting there passively and quiet. He has one job and one job only, and that's to do what Donald Trump tells him to do. And look how he's changed. Is this really the same Marco Rubio that we saw a year ago talking about Russia? Vladimir Putin is an evil dictator, a brutal dictator. Russia can't be trusted. Today it's like, no, we're going to sit down. We're going to have good relations with the Russians. We're going to do this. We're normalizing relations. I mean, Marco Rubio just said, okay, I'm going to do my job. Donald Trump sent the signal. He's not about military confrontation. He's about economic cooperation. And that's the direction that we're heading. And Marco Rubio is going to be the compliant tool to make it happen. And in 2 years, when Marco Rubio becomes fed up with it, either he has to conform totally or he's going to be like, then he's going to pop out. Then Marco Rubio, because he'll become like Nikki Haley, who made it to the ambassadorship of the United Nations and then left and then spent 2 years stabbing Donald Trump in the back, campaigning against him. And Marco Rubio will come out, pull up Mike Pompeo or, a John Bolton. We were against it the whole time. This is bad policy. This was stupid. I can't believe it. Meanwhile, J.D. Vance and Donald Trump are going to crush him. And they'll roll into 2028, and J.D. Vance will be the presidential candidate, and he's going to win. That's 4 years. He's going to pick a brilliant vice presidential candidate. Maybe that person's name is Tulsi Gabbard, and then Tulsi Gabbard will be the president, and that's 20 years. Last time I checked, 8 plus 8 is 16, plus 4 is 20. And right now he's got a little bit of a leash on China. Mark my words. When it comes time to engage with China, Marco Rubio is going to shut up and start singing a whole different tune. No, the foundation of our, relationship with China is economic. We're going to meet with them. There's going to be great economic deals done and all that stuff.